I signed another document while Dad explained to his wealth manager why I couldn't possibly help with his portfolio. Elena runs some little consulting thing from her apartment, he said, not even glancing my way. She makes pamphlets or something. We can't rely on her for serious financial matters. We were in the executive offices of Heritage Trust Bank, the regional institution my grandfather had founded 60 years ago, the one Dad now chaired, the one my brother Ryan managed as chief operations officer. The building still had grandfather's portrait in the lobby, stern and distinguished. Elena's always been creative, Mom added with that particular tone that made creative sound like a character flaw. She has her little office space she rents, hosts meetings with her friends. Sweet really. Like playing office. Ryan smirked from across the mahogany table. Remember when she wanted us to invest in her business? What was it, Elle? Financial consulting. He used air quotes like weapons. As if anyone would trust you with real money. That had been 7 years ago. I'd been 25, fresh from Wharton with my MBA, and I'd asked for $100,000 to expand my financial advisory firm. Dad had laughed, actually laughed, and told me to get a real job at a real company. So I'd gotten funding elsewhere. Elena, sweetheart, this is complicated financial planning, the wealth manager, Gerald something, said to me like I was a child. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable waiting in the lobby? I smiled politely and kept reviewing the acquisition documents on my tablet. The timing was perfect. Heritage Trust Bank's board meeting was tomorrow at 10 a.m. By 10:15 everything would be different. The reason we're here, Dad continued, is that Heritage Trust needs a capital infusion. We've had some challenging quarters. We need $42 million to meet regulatory requirements. We have several interested investors, Dad added quickly. But we want to maintain family control. The Harpers have been the face of Heritage Trust since 1964. It meant they'd been coasting on grandfather's reputation while driving his institution into the ground. What about Elena? Gerald asked suddenly. Could she contribute? The silence was deafening. Then Ryan actually laughed out loud. Elena? She can barely pay her own rent. Now that's not fair, Mom said. I'm sure Elena does just fine with her little business. But $42 million? Don't be ridiculous. I could have corrected them. Could have mentioned that my little business, Apex Capital Advisors, managed $8.3 billion in assets. That we had 140 employees across 6 offices. That last year alone my personal income had been $34 million. But people reveal their true selves when they think you're powerless. Elena's not equipped for this conversation, Dad said definitively. Let's focus on serious options. Gerald launched into a presentation about potential investor groups. Private equity firms. A family office from California that specialized in community bank acquisitions. What Gerald didn't mention, what none of them knew, was that the California family office was mine. I'd started Apex Capital Advisors 7 years ago with $50,000 in savings and 3 small business owners who'd believed in me when my family hadn't. We specialized in financial planning and investment management. Our returns had been exceptional. Within 2 years, we were managing $400 million. Within 4, $2.6 billion. Forbes had named me one of their 30 under 30 in finance. The Wall Street Journal had profiled our investment strategy. My family had never noticed. They were too busy running their bank into the ground while congratulating themselves on their importance. The California group is offering the full $42 million, Ryan was saying. But they want board seats and operational oversight. Unacceptable, Dad said immediately. This is a family bank. I checked my watch. 23 hours until the board meeting. Maybe Elena could ask her friends for money, Ryan said with a snide grin. Doesn't she do retirement planning for teachers or something? I work with various clients, I said quietly. See? Various clients. Ryan looked at Gerald. My sister's very proud of her small-time operation. We don't like to embarrass her by pointing out the difference between her world and ours. The meeting dragged on for another hour. Plans and proposals, none of which would matter by tomorrow afternoon. Dad and Ryan had mismanaged Heritage Trust terribly, bad loans, neglected technology, lost clients. I knew all of this because my due diligence team had been thorough. We'd spent 6 months analyzing Heritage Trust from every angle. The bank had good brand recognition but terrible management. It was exactly the kind of opportunity Apex Capital specialized in. Well, I think that's everything, Dad said finally, standing up. We'll make a decision about the capital raise by next week. Actually, you won't, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. What? Dad's expression was confused, slightly annoyed. You won't be making the decision. The board will. And the board's composition is about to change significantly. Ryan laughed. Elena, what are you talking about? I pulled up a document on my tablet and turned it so they could see. This is a signed agreement between Apex Capital Advisors and Heritage Trust Bank's largest shareholders. As of tomorrow morning's board meeting, Apex will control 63% of Heritage Trust's voting shares. Silence. That's impossible, Dad said. I would have been notified of any major share transactions. You were notified. 3 months ago. Your office received certified letters about the pending acquisition. You never opened them because they came from some consulting firm in California, and you told your assistant to file them away. I watched the color drain from his face. Apex Capital Advisors has been operating for 7 years, I continued. We manage $8.3 billion in assets. We specialize in turnaround investments and financial institution management. Last year, we acquired controlling interest in 4 struggling regional banks and returned them all to profitability within 18 months. No, Mom whispered. You can't, you don't. Heritage Trust will be our 5th bank acquisition. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., the board will vote to accept our capital infusion of $42 million. At 10:15, they'll vote to restructure management. Ryan had gone pale. You're lying. Gerald, you're Heritage Trust's wealth manager, correct? I looked at him. Perhaps you'd like to verify Apex Capital Advisors' credentials? His fingers flew across his laptop. I watched his eyes widen. Oh my God, he said softly. Elena Harper, founder and CEO of Apex Capital. Listed net worth of... He trailed off, speechless. What? Dad grabbed the laptop. His hands were shaking. Apex Capital Advisors operates the California family office you've been negotiating with, I continued calmly. We've been purchasing Heritage Trust shares through subsidiary companies for 8 months. Your largest shareholders were very interested in selling once they realized how badly you'd mismanaged their investments. This is insane, Ryan said, but his voice had lost its confidence. You don't know how to run a bank. I have an MBA from Wharton where I graduated top of my class. I've served on the boards of 3 regional banks and 2 national financial institutions. My team includes former executives from Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and JP Morgan Chase. I paused. But please tell me more about how I'm not qualified. Mom made a small sound almost like a whimper. Tomorrow's board meeting will be interesting, I said. Dad, you'll remain as a board member but not as chairman. Ryan, you're fired effective immediately. Your severance package will be generous. I don't punish people for incompetence, only for arrogance. You can't do this to us, Dad said, his voice breaking. We're your family. You're right. You're my family. That's why I'm paying market value for the shares instead of the discounted price your mismanagement actually warrants. That's why Dad gets to stay on the board instead of being removed entirely. I stood up and gathered my things. But let's be very clear about who did this to whom. 7 years ago I asked for your support and you laughed at me. Every holiday, every family gathering, every single conversation, you've dismissed my work as playing office. You've told people I make pamphlets. We didn't mean, Mom started. Yes, you did. You meant every word. You were embarrassed by me. Ashamed that I wasn't following in Dad's footsteps like Ryan. Gerald was staring at his laptop screen. Your firm's assets under management, the returns you've generated, this is extraordinary. Ryan found his voice again, desperate now. Elena, please. We can work something out. I'll do better. You'll leave tomorrow with your severance check and a non-disparagement agreement. And you'll never work in finance again, I'll make sure of that. The board meeting is at 10 a.m. tomorrow, I said. Dad, I expect you to be professional. Mom, you're welcome to attend as Dad's spouse. But this is a business meeting, not a family dinner. I walked to the door then paused. Oh, and one more thing. That little office space I rent? It's 12,000 square feet on the 43rd floor of the Transamerica Pyramid. Rent is $180,000 per month. Those friends I host meetings with? They're clients with a combined net worth of $34 billion. I smiled and it wasn't kind. But sure. I'm just playing office. The board meeting the next morning lasted 47 minutes. Dad sat silent, looking 20 years older. Ryan wasn't present. Security had escorted him from the building at 9:30 a.m. The vote was unanimous. Apex Capital Advisors' capital infusion was approved. Management restructuring was approved. My appointment as board chairman was approved. Heritage Trust Bank would survive. More than survive, it would thrive. New technology platforms. Restructured loan portfolios. Enhanced customer service. Within 6 months, we'd return Heritage Trust to profitability. Grandfather's legacy would be preserved. Just not by the people he'd expected. 3 weeks later, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Dad sent an email with the subject line, "I'm sorry." I archived it without reading. Ryan texted, "You destroyed my career to prove a point." I blocked him. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature, "How Apex Capital Advisors Saved Heritage Trust Bank." There was a photo of me standing in grandfather's old office, now mine, in front of his portrait. I framed the article and hung it in my San Francisco office, right across from my Wharton diploma and my Forbes 30 under 30 plaque. Sometimes late at night I wondered if I'd been too harsh. Then I'd remember Ryan's smirk as he told Gerald that I played office. Dad's dismissive laugh when I'd asked for investment capital. Mom's condescending pat on my hand. 7 years of building something extraordinary while they told the world I was a failure. But I hadn't been too harsh. I'd been exactly harsh enough.